Basically, you have this page. When you go to this prioritization page, I'm actually going to share a direct link. I did. So the last link. It should automatically select the Beyond MVG like recommendations. So if you remember, the last 3 weeks, we have been going through all of these workshops. These are on the workshop page. You can see our different discussions we had. And if you're wondering what each of these discussions talked about or want more than just these key insights that are brought out here, you have opportunity to ask AI assistant very specific discussions or very specific questions, and it should have the context of all the meeting summaries and provide you at least some kind of like background info. That's, I guess, yeah, either in the call or you can try it yourself or asynchronously to catch up. But basically, through all of these workshops that we were about prioritization, we identified a bunch of them, I think 35 or something. And now we, in the team, created 10 or actually 9 recommendations. Yep. Out of these, what we created, and some of them we separated out into like a specific recommendation, and some of them we combined into more general if they were like standalone ones. And today, I will like take the first, let's say 5 minutes or so for people to go through this Beyond MVG recommendations. And if you are in this page and it's not showing up, and it's look like that, then either you sort by newest or you just click Beyond MVG and it automatically filters out the Beyond MVG tag. Because this is today we only focus on these tagged recommendations. And then here are like this Reddit style up and down ranking options you have here. If you want to have a topic about this recommendation, go into more details with it and then rank it up. Or if you find it like a priority or a necessity, then rank it up. And then we discuss about it today. We go through different assessments, share general knowledge or some insight if you know any of these recommendations is being already done somewhere in the ecosystem. And even if we are not addressing today some of the discussion, all of this application is available asynchronously, so you come back anytime you're available, add some comments, add some assessments, or re-rank. We're gonna have one more session this week also, which we on Friday. So all the asynchronous activity will benefit. Else we just start from a blank slate. So take your time going through the recommendation. When you click it open, on the top here, you will see the like the main recommendation, and some of them have like additional information, expected outcomes. Some of them have also these dashboards attached of what specific challenges they address. This way you go up and down, and then you either upvote or downvote if you want to kind of prioritize discussion. And then after you have 5 minutes or so, we will sort them by most votes and go from top to down then. Well, with that silence, I think we start then. Final refresh, and no changes. Okay, it seems there was a change. Another item appeared higher up. Let me, I think everything should be fine. Let's then kick it off with that. So a recommendation is about kicking off a coordinated discussion via Cardano problem statements that clearly frames the various root causes and complementary solutions for DRep power distribution. CIP has started one direction, and then let's wonder, do we have any links to that? Not really. but somebody with a wallet address did add some extra links, but they are not the CIP links. And DRep direct tipping is already possible, but not widely available. Okay, so maybe that CIP is about the DRep tipping itself.
Yeah, that is a CIP for optional DRep compensation, where you can donate in a wallet. It was implemented by Intersect and the Civics Committee out for grants for wallets to integrate. I think it is available in Eternal, and it needs more adoption.
Okay, and that recommendation then is creating parallel awareness that this feature exists. Solution should be designed to work together, not in opposition, address unconstrained DRep power accumulation, and current burnout that lets larger DReps continue while smaller ones drop out. More distributed here means voting power does not perpetually trend towards fewer DReps. Incentives avoid good actor burnout. DRep compensation must be grounded in data from various attempts because compensation is hard to reverse. DRep power caps must come with Sybil resistance. It sounds more like it's a challenge prep rather than recommendation itself.
Yeah, the idea on this one is that we know there's already a lot of compensation discussions happening, and also discussions around how we could, from a more technical perspective, limit power to individual DReps, but they both are addressing the same root concern of power concentration, somewhat for compensation around participation and improving participation for DReps, but also conversations about compensation have been related to how do you compensate DReps in a way that encourages broader distribution of power. So since both of those discussions relate to the same problem, having them formalized together, at least so that those two topics are being discussed aware of each other, so they can work better together. If there's opportunities for DRep caps to somehow be related to compensation, or maybe they need to stay separate, but having that conversation in a way that we're not creating two different solutions that maybe could have been optimized if we were better talking. And just generally moving both of those conversations forward as both of them as important topics to come up with solutions and start implementing.
I also see Ryan or Circarin added a link to the comment there. He has beyond binary outcomes, a process first reward designed for DRep compensation. Would you explain a little bit about that, Ryan?
Yeah. So there was an IO paper that I read, reward size for committee schemes or something like that. I'll try and find a link to that later. That I think had some interesting ideas.
IOR?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Yeah, I was reading that. It had some interesting ideas, but I think the premise was, I don't want to say flawed, but there was the kind of starting with the premise that quality is a measurable thing, and I think quality is actually a really hard thing to measure. So I kind of decided to write my own side using their similar methodology, right, of grading different DRep compensation schemes, assuming that quality is not something that we can measure. So what is the next best things we can measure, right? And then one of the problems we're discussing here is how do we, get more distributed voting power, prevent concentration, right? I think if you're going to be doing incentives, that seems like the obvious thing to try and solve, is to see if you can use incentives to solve that problem, which is basically measuring decentralization, right? If we can use incentives to push voting power to be more decentralized, that sounds like a win-win. And then secondary metric we can measure with this is just participation, right? We want to get more stake and voting power involved in governance. So this is kind of trying to optimize first for decentralization, second for participation. Kind of comes up with a whole bunch of different simulations to run. And then I've got some charts at the bottom that show how those work out based on different compensation schemes. And then the scheme that I kind of recommend in this paper is middle out or exclude K, pay next N, which is basically like if we take the top K DReps and we just exclude them from eligibility, and then we take the next N DReps and we compensate them, how effective would that be? And then I measured it on those two metrics. And it is not, in terms of participation, paying strictly by proportional voting power will help more with voting power, as you're sharing right now. But the middle out method I was describing is a little bit more towards decentralization. And then the other thing that I kind of like about the middle out method is it's cheaper on the treasury, right? Like you don't necessarily need to have a huge amount of ADA to compensate DReps for to make it effective, right? So some of the examples I have here, DReps are only getting like 1 or 10 ADA per proposal they vote on. And this whole idea is you get rewarded per proposal. So if there's 100 proposals, so you get 10 ADA per proposal, it's 1,000 ADA. But if there's 1,000 proposals, then it scales with the amount of work you have to do by tying compensation to the amount of proposals. And there's some heat maps based on the different K and N and that sort of thing.
Cool. Just out of I haven't read all about this. I just know that you have been clicking on this for quite some long time. So there we have a working group in the civics committee that is working on compensation not only for DRep but also for CC members as well.
Yeah.
This problem statement here is achieves funding from the treasury, from what I understand. Is it like we put for a budget, or is it like integrated in a ledger later on, or what do?
Yeah. So I mean, this is my opinion here, is I think if you're going to do something, it needs to be a pilot program first. We put in a treasury withdrawal and we say, we're going to try this for, a year or 6 months or whatever. And we're just going to do it manually, right? Maybe it's a intersect administered thing. And then we look at all the people, how they vote, and we just dole it out manually. And we see if it actually affects the metrics we want. Does it actually increase decentralization? Did it actually increase participation? And if it works, we keep it. And eventually, if people turn to like it, we can formalize it in the ledger, right? And have it just pay people directly to their staking accounts. And I also think that something like this could work just as easily for the CC, except for the CC, decentralization isn't really a thing because they're elected. But you could probably reuse the same mechanism and just reward them a different amount. And even SPOs for voting too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you sort of SPOs as well. That's nice.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that, it needs to be specifically on things that they are eligible and required to vote on. So SPOs don't really vote on all that much. It's hard forks. I think they vote on the CC and then certain security parameters, critical parameters.
Critical.
They should be they should be reward. I can't say on the name, sorry, but they should be. In my opinion, if they're going to be compensated, you need to be compensated for the ones you have to vote on. You should not just be voting on things just to get paid for things that you don't even need to vote on. So.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I think I know the reason for it. But so you mentioned to prevent concentration. Is there some other reasons why you think DReps, CC, and SPOs should be compensation? Is there like any other quality that gives to the governance?
Yeah, so quality is the tricky part, right? Because we could all say it's too subjective, right? Like how are we supposed to measure, is the outcome of this proposal a good quality or bad quality for Cardano? Like that's the entire job of DReps. There's no way to objectively say, oh, this is your high quality DRep and then reward somebody that way, because there's always going to be some subjectivity in the process.
But would you say, for example, that if this was implemented and tested out of NMP and it reduces the DRep concentration, would you say that is a good governance quality?
Yes. Yeah, that is the intended outcome of this. And I'll mention, because you had Nico's, he had like 5 different ideas there too. His first idea, or I forget what it's called, experiments, actually is intriguing because he compares it to ENS and their incentives program, right? And so he mentions rewarding delegators. which has some interesting qualities, but also has some interesting downsides, right? Because if you're going to reward delegators, it's probably going to be more expensive because there's just a lot more delegators. And also then you're kind of doing away with the, I'm a DRep and I did work. I should be compensated for that work. But then you're paying the delegators. Like, who's going to want to be a DRep in that case? I think that's an interesting idea, but the only thing I would change is I would flip the ratio here. So he has it going, because of how ENS works, 90% to delegators, 10% to DReps, whatever ENS calls those. I would give 90% to DReps and 10% to delegators, right? So if we're doing 10 ADA per proposal, so it's 9 ADA goes to a DRep, 1 ADA goes to a delegator, and now your delegator is incentivized to delegate to a DRep that actually votes. So it'll get, even if it's 1 ADA per proposal, like if we do 100 proposals per year, that's 100 ADA per delegator. That could be, some delegators might be incentivized to change their delegation or at least pay attention to governance more often, if that's the thing. So.
It's just how can I put it? So in Beyond Minimum Governance, so in the framework that we created, I dig down into OSCE, the election observers. What kind of, not like specific stuff that they are observing for, but what is the values that they are looking for in democracy and value? And one of those things that they put forward, very critical, is that governance has always a cost. Mm-hmm. And it's because you have to have someone that have to make information available. We have, like in Cardano spaces, we have a suggestion here, like bring governance closer to the ADA owners, make governance happen in the wallet, for example, or even make governance happen on the centralized exchange. And what you are doing there is like boosting and emphasizing the quality of democratic participation, which again actually gives the representation of the free will of the people or the ADA owner.
You mentioned something interesting there, that governance has a cost, right? So we have this actual technical problem that we have to have a very expensive deposit for submitting an on-chain governance action, a 100K deposit, right? But it just gets returned to the proposer. But then at the same time, DReps have to all do this work and don't get compensated. So I've been toying with the idea of how we can have it such that a portion or even all of the deposit is actually what goes to the delegators as compensation, rather than having it just returned to the proposer. Of course, that would probably make a lot of people not want to propose because there's, a much more tangible cost. Like there already is a cost, right? Staking rewards on 100K ADA for 6 epochs is about 200 ADA, so it's at least a hard 200 ADA cost. But we did just see a whole bunch of people pay 1,000 ADA to get a treasury withdrawal for Intersect. So maybe even if you have 1,000 ADA, and that's the deposit, right? It's not 100K anymore. More people can actually make on-chain actions, but now you don't get that back. But then those DReps split up the 1,000 ADA. It's a tiny amount of ADA, but now you're compensating DReps, and it scales with the amount of work you have to do. So.
I would say, like, on-chain proposal to a governance action today doesn't have a cost, because you get the ADA deposit back, expect from like 300-400 ADA in staking rewards or something like that. And I also have seen some proposals. I think it's Thomas Linseth that has proposed to actually spend some of those the deposit and distribute it, because you are the one who are making a proposal. You put a certain workload on currently 333 active DReps,
exactly,
and 7 CC members, and it's a parameter, critical parameter. Then you involves you have like 2,600 SPOs eligible to vote currently in the Cardano ecosystem, and then you charge for it. You pay them to evaluate.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think Lucas is.
Lucas, this one is on your. This one, I think you have read a lot about this one as well, haven't you?
Well, not so much. I've been looking at a lot of stuff, but I can't really, dive very deep into anything. I just want to add to what Sukaran just suggested, that it may also be relevant, and I know that he's been working on crowdfunding funds for that deposit. So it may seem harsh to say, okay, you're going to put in a governance action, you're going to pay those 100,000 ADA to the treasury or to be distributed as rewards. But we also sort of need an ecosystem, a way that if we were to incentivize or create mechanisms for people to crowdfund the deposit, or in this case, cost of the governance action, that would also already create some kind of promotion to it, validation. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to crowdfund it. And in that case, you would really need to pay for it yourself.
Yeah, and what I think, so the practical solution is in the what out of those proposals we have currently, I think it is a combination of those. Let's say, for example, the calculation here that Sarkon had made. We might Thomas' ID, taking some from the deposits and make it a cost. I think it is. It's going to be very exciting, at least, to see what the working group at the Civics, and I'm not aware of anyone else, let's say, looking all over the ecosystem for, let's say, other types of compensation beyond me in the MVG here project, trying to like scout out everything going on. I don't know what you guys think. Like, is it feasible? You think? Is it fair to take from the deposits?
I mean, we just did it for the intersect budget process. Just it was 1,008 a cost, and that's already into the range of what I thought people would be willing to pay. So I guess
So
there's definitely a demand for it.
Yeah. So let's just play around with it a little bit. So imagine that we just reduce the deposit for governance action to, let's say, 1,008, and that got distributed to CC members, DReps, and stake pool operators in, I don't know, like here comes the hard debate, but like, what's the distribution going to look like? Let's say, imagine 60% goes to DReps, 20% goes to SPOs, and the rest is 20 go to CC. Just for example, that is something that is from what I know in regards to the ledger level, feasible and easy to calculate. It doesn't put a lot of stress on the ledger, like the DRep pulse calculation and then the staking rewards calculation. And it can be, when the proposal goes out, the ledger can just calculate the distribution, and it gets claimed when the DRep votes, or the SPO votes, or the CC votes by the stake. I don't know if you like to go practical on it.
But even if we do that, then we are stepping out a bit from this this recommendation itself. Does that mean it doesn't really align? Because right now it seems like you're describing a ledger mechanic to fund, where this is giving an direction that let's leverage the CIP 0149, which is totally different feature basically on top of Cardano.
Yeah, that is like you as a delegator to your DRep, you just choose that from my staking rewards. So basically, you are not putting a load on the treasury in regards to financing. You're delegating a certain portion of your staking rewards. But the mechanic, to try to decentralize the voting power, and if you look at the democratic values that you are building up on, they are the same. Because, but I think we had tested out CIP 149. It's been out there for 8 months now. Despite the civics committee calling and even sending emails repeatedly to ask if they wanted this grant for 5,000 ADA, the the wallet providers and SDK providers, they didn't prioritize CIP 149. So I think it needs to be on the ledger level. And when you have it on the ledger level, then the wallet providers will say the ROI in facilitating and creating the UI for it. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just wondering because we've been focused on just one of the 10 the whole time, and then you mentioned the wallets, and I think that's number 3 here on the screen. Might be interesting to talk about either another topic or move on to see if we can actually get folks to provide their votes with the time remaining to think through all of them and make a decision as to which ones they think are most important.
Yeah, just here in front, I think you have a good grasp. I also felt like this recommendation, even though at the first glance felt like a priority to discuss, I assessed it as a cooled and wouldn't even go into measuring it and looking at something which is more time sensitive right now. And because and maybe at the least what everybody could do is provide an impact assessment on this based on our discussions we had. And I felt like, from my perspective, it had a low impact on with the specific recommendation where Ryan is affecting ledger, and it creates less friction once it's applied. Although how to get that applied is there a front load work that needs to be done. So yeah, that's my kind of my opinion on that. But if you think this has more impact, other metrics are important for you, share comments, everything is available. John, you also want to add something on this recommendation, or moving to another one?
Yeah, thanks, Tivo. I'll speak for a minute. I think it's this over-centralization of power in just a few DReps is sort of, for me, it's the absolute crucial issue in all of governance. If we don't solve this, we really don't solve anything. We don't have anything that's fit for purpose. And whenever 30 people can be called up by proposers, it's left the door to eventual corruption, absolutely wide open. So the whole governance system is not fit for purpose unless decentralization of DRep power takes place. Now, compensating smaller DReps to get them more involved is obviously one step, but it doesn't necessarily trigger the action delegation that we need. But over time, then it would at least have the body of DReps that we always wanted that would be able to be delegated to. Now, I think it was Danielle or maybe somebody else posted the IOG State of Governance report.
That's this project team.
It was this project team. Okay. Well, in that, I read that cover to cover. I thought it was brilliant. Well done. It says that I think that the number quoted is 20 to 35 DReps are all that's required to pass a proposal. Mm-hmm. And so this, instead of saying that the top 10 should be excluded, I would push that right out to the top 35. If DReps are in that top 35, then they've already got the motivation. They're running businesses, the wallets or SPOs. I did a check actually and went through how many have businesses, and it's 85-90% of the top 35 have a business where they're already engaged. Their voice is meaningful, so compensation for them wouldn't really make a difference. So I'd like that level shifted down to 35. And then I really liked the idea of using some part of the deposit that people pay to compensate. Now, one issue with that would be if you eventually get about 300, 400 smaller DReps voting, even 1,000 ADA distributed amongst them would be not meaningful enough. And I think there's a way that you can get what you want, which is lots of smaller DReps participating on a regular basis at a much cheaper price. And that would be by not paying them all the time, but rather paying one or two a larger amount with each proposal that goes through, essentially running it like in the same way that you distribute money to the SPOs. Every time a block's produced, essentially a lottery is run and one block gets all of the money. Essentially run that for something like the SPOs. That way, you know, if you had a 500 ADA prize given out between 300 or 400 DReps with each cycle, you know, you might go a year without winning, but when you do, at least it's meaningful and you actually get that participation. Now, I know a bit about lottery and gaming regulations, prize competitions. You would need to get a legal opinion on it. You'd need to write the idea out about what you want and get a legal opinion and see what jurisdictions, etc. you're able to run that in. But it is within a closed system. Nobody's buying a ticket, and certainly in UK law, then you would be able to run something like this within the UK. Whether you could then allow it to be open to people around the world would be one of the legal questions you need to solve. But there are ways to go through that idea in a structured way and get all of the participation benefits that you want at a much cheaper cost. Anyway, so I'll just put that out there.
I think it'd be good to hear from others what they think of the most important change would be. Thanks for that, John, by the way. Those are great thoughts.
So we have this recommendation in regards wallets. You have it there, Tevo?
You mean the SPO cold wallet, key wallets, or
No, to bring governance closer to
wallet? Bring governance information into wallets, this one.
yes. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. So let's say put aside the technical part, the geeky part, and look at, do you think we would have a larger participation rate amongst ADA owners to begin with? You know, those are the ones who are empowering the whole governance model in Cardano. Do you think it would be a good thing to bring governance into the different wallets that we have and have that as a standard? And I would love to hear your opinion of why is that, or if it's not.
I mean, personally, I think that's one of the highest value add things we could do for governance if we want participation, right? Like imagine you're just going to trade NFTs or some meme coin or something, and you just see a pop-up that your DRep voted. And then you're curious to know what they voted on, or maybe you notice they voted on something you wouldn't have voted on, or the way that you wouldn't have voted, so you want to change, or maybe you see a notification or an RSS feed that there's a new proposal out. Maybe you're a DRep and you notice it there. Like I think we kind of run into the problem of wanting to build too many tools on Cardano, and I mentioned the XKCD meme for this, right? When 99% of these things should just be integrated into wallets. Like I should just be able to go to my wallet, see all the proposals, vote on the proposals, socialize my proposals, all of these things inside the wallet. And most of the hurdles there are, you know, technical mechanisms for doing that, right? Like if I want to have like a kind of a socialized social media system, it'd be very cool if it was integrated into the wallets. It's just how do you do that, like kind of in an on-chain manner that is standardized across wallets. And I mentioned SIP, I think 137, which is decentralized message queue, which is something that's been talked about that might be capable of doing that, or even just integrating something like Nostr on top of wallets, which is kind of social media over notes, and I can't remember what it's called, what Nostr stands for, but it's essentially what it is for doing social media over internet decentralized protocol. But yeah, just like I feel like a lot of ADA holders, like governance is not alive to them because it's just they don't even see it. It's just a completely different world because they're just interacting with wallets and DeFi and they don't see what's going on. Yes, thank you, Lucas.
Yeah.
Notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know, like I think it would like awesome if you, like you mentioned, like in a similar way that, you know, get notification, snack pump 27%, or your DRep just voted, and For
Yeah,
you
imagine
know,
that on a mobile wallet, right? Your phone pops up and says your DRep voted. How freaking cool would that be? I think it'd be
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. And you have also notifications in plugins in Chrome browsers as well. Notifications. I get a notification when my email want to annoy me. So I think it should be. I think it's feasible to actually build. So when it comes to messaging, in the crypto space, we have messaging like wormhole, even between blockchains. We have metadata in transactions that, it's like when you send a transaction to yourself, you have a possibility to have a CLI node catch those one. You even have like an even more extreme one is that you can have you can have governance running on a layer 2 to be like that. So all transaction is just about governance.
Guys, just jumping in. We have an example in the ecosystem being around for 4 years. You'll know, like Catalyst, for example, had so much to go for it. But from my point of view, the UI UX of Catalyst was always a bottleneck or an impediment, or So I know that you guys are working on like calculations for incentives, modes and flows of money, but don't I would encourage you guys to keep as much as possible the thread of intervention all the way to the UI UX, piggybacking on what Sir Corin was saying, because otherwise we may have just be reinventing Catalyst, So everything may be okay. Like in their case, they had the community reviewers, they had this and that, but things just weren't fluid enough. And I know you guys are not going to build the UI UX, but it's important like to pipeline or to outline the SIPs, for example, that can be used, and to contemplate that component into the governance layer.
Yeah, definitely. Quasar.
Hey guys, despite the issues with Catalyst, the Catalyst voting app would have been a primary source or a tool to use for the notification system. Everybody downloaded the app that was involved in Catalyst, and so I could see that being reused for purpose, or at least as a something to consider if you're looking for that communication. It's not in wallet, but I mean, getting 15 wallet providers to all build the same thing, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's actually why I had my hand up, because I was thinking like one of the reasons why things haven't been built in wallets is there's not really a business case for them to do that for all the governance features. And there's so many different ones you have to have. Sure, you target the big ones first, but it's more than just one team or one company building it. It's like multiple having to do that. So that's why I was kind of curious is I love the idea of having better features in wallets, but how could we get that to happen? And do we think DReps would be willing to spend that much money? Our assumption is that right now there's already a lot of funding ask and a lot of pressure on the DReps for this year. And so trying to find maybe a cheaper solution, but maybe that'll just feel like we're putting band-aids on again for the third round. So I was curious about people's thoughts on that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to throw wishful thinking out there as well with the wallets. Like every hard fork, there's work that the DApp builders and or wallets all have to do. It'd be really cool to see proposals go in that actually address the work that's involved for those, wallet providers or the other DApp builders, as opposed to each one individually, maybe knowing about it and submitting a proposal for it. Whereas if there's a way for a group to submit a proposal on behalf of a part of the ecosystem that will be affected, I think we could make some progress. But I think, again, very hard to organize, do, and get DReps to vote on.
So based on this brief discussion back and forth, I will actually go into assessment. So based on that, for example, last speaker, Quasar, if you can, what would be your Moscow tier for this recommendation of having more information in wallets themselves and having features in these wallets? Is it a must? Is it a should or a cool, like nice to have, or you don't see that happening? And Quasar, if you can't answer that, then Pedro.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tivo. I didn't know if that was for me. I was answering it in my head quietly. Surprisingly, I went about 3 months without looking in a wallet. So let's consider who's the target here. Is it DReps that are wanting this feature, or every ADA holder? There's a lot of people that are just not active and aren't going to see it anyway. So if we focus on those that are, which would be DReps, perhaps it is a way for it to be in front of DReps. But again, you're still going to have all of those other active data holders that want to see it as well. I just don't know that right now in this market, how many people would be looking at it if it were available.
Yeah, the root cause that this proposal is trying to address is increasing participation in governance. So the idea would be if governance information is in the wallet, users who haven't really discovered governance yet might, and that might help bring more people to delegate to a DRep or become a DRep. So that was the reason behind this specific feature set.
Because it includes hypotheticals, do we assume then the Moscow tier is a should, not a must? Or we go even cooled, nice to have? Even, well, like it's hard because it is like a recommendation that has been bubbling up over and over time, which means there must be some kind of need for that. But is that because the audience that came in these workshops and those who provide surveys, they will look at that, or or is something else?
Well, I can add on the why here. So why do we want more participation in governance? So if you are taking the formal perspective from OSCE, they measure participation against legitimacy of how the will of the people are, or in this case, ADA owners are represented. So when only a few participate, OSCE will say that this, for example, this election is not legitimate, it's not representative for the will of the let's say people in a nation state, and it's the same, in governance online also, that when you don't have ADA owners delegating, we are literally the DReps are not talking on behalf of the ADA owners.
Is that kicked back to me? If it was, I'm sorry. So we're looking at really two things, or one of them being participation in governance. And really, we're asking for more ADA to participate, to be used in voting when we're saying that. And a byproduct of that is also more individuals, more people involved, theoretically, because we could get more ADA without people. And that's the proof of stake situation that we're in here. I don't know how do you govern, how do you measure it? Is it, wallets participating, or is it total amount of ADA, or a combination of both? That's rhetorical at this point. I think if we want more, it's not so much about in wallet or anything. We have to actually go outside of our bubbles to the places where the ADA is, onto the exchanges and stuff, and get actually new ADA into the system itself. And that's where I would try to find some scheme for the DRep incentive and or some other program. You know, there's a lot of absentee ADA, you know, not participating. And that's, in my opinion, where we're going to have the better chance of success in bringing both more ADA and more people in.
Yeah, fair point. So by observation on chain and measurement, we know that the majority of circulating ADA, you know, is actually parked at a centralized exchange, and we will, if we don't have governance integration, let's say those are people, you know, they will never open a Vesper wallet. And I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it's a large chunk that is not participation in governance, and they're not even staked.
The more you guys talk, the less impact I feel this recommendation will have. Does anybody also feel like this is impact number 3? Like it feels like it's targeting a niche group of people, and it's not like entire ecosystem who is getting affected when, well, there is like the entire ecosystem gets affected when they are seeing some kind of notification, but I feel like it rather may be more like an annoyance, and they will try to find a setting to disable that governance stuff. So yeah, I don't know, does anybody agree with me, or do they have like some positive elements why this impact should be higher?
I will push back on that, Theo, but let's have Lucas first.
Guys, I feel like I'm gonna just come out of nowhere with this, but when we think, and I've been thinking a bit, going out to the world and trying to get people to come to Web3, explaining what Cardano is, the civic duty or the possibility of becoming a part of a network state, you know, this nation where 45 billion ADA is the total terrain that we're ever going to have. You have like your plot, which is your bit of ADA, that gives you the right to vote. I'm painting all this because I'm trying to convince people to come and to vote and to build on Cardano, not because they're going to get staking rewards. By the way, I explained those as just inflation correction. So forget about the rewards or the yield. It's your terrain. It's where you want to build. It's a technology that's going to be there for decades or whatever. And, you know, so I know that this comes completely outside of the scope of all the variables that and mathematical ones, but culture is also there, should also be there, you know. And I'm going to have to drop, I'm sorry. But thanks for all your work, and I will keep in the loop as much as possible.
Thanks, Lucas, for your
I feel
contribution.
like I hope that I can continue this bit of discussion with the civics committee, because I feel like that's what civics is about. You know? Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to see you there.
I will be there.
Yeah, in regards to impact, that was your impact. So I will say that bringing governance into the wallet will have a large impact on the governance model in Cardano ecosystem. First off, any democratic frameworks, you know, their legitimacy is always in the public, and in our case, it's the ADA owners. They are out there, but they are not going to cardanoforum.org or reading on Reddit and clicking link for tempo.vote and yada yada. The friction is too large to participate. Like some stats, you know, like if you put a link on a website and it's not catchy, people spend less than 1.5 seconds to decide if they want to utilize it. So this is why it needs to bring into the wallet and give the liquid democracy that we have in Cardano a legitimacy and a representative as many wallet holders and as much, one Lovelace, one vote. So the more Lovelace we get engaged, the more vote we have, the more legitimacy it has.
When I compare Discord to Telegram, I always feel like the Telegram is not optimal at all. When if you make wallets to give every single notification that somebody comes up, or if it doesn't, and the wallet providers start to filter what governance they want to provide people, then we're gonna run into, I don't know. Well, we're gonna have more impact. And now I kind of understand that but is that a good impact we're gonna have? Like
You
if
could
you're
just
gonna
have a toggle for governance notifications. Just toggle it off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, today we went through, I'm gonna say that, 2 recommendations. Over time, asynchronously, those are watching or who are still in here, you can join the platform and down vote. So when we join the call on Friday, we will have more like another priority list here. And if you have a more capacity, then open up the assessment and provide impact assessment for each of these recommendations you feel you have something to say. Adding comments, anything is going to be included in the in the final analysis of recommendation, and it all feeds into it. You see most votes. Yeah, so we discussed this a little. And what else we discussed today? Governance. This one a little. So this gives an indication, or okay, maybe it doesn't give an indication if it has this Beyond MVG tag. Oh, it does. So if you see these 2 dudes icon, this means we discussed it in workshop. Okay. Does anybody want to have some closing thoughts regarding today's discussion? Some remarks? Anything that needs to be taken for the next session we have, or some async deliberation? Now it's time to share your points. And I open it up with Sound GBD first, because you haven't had an ability to share your comment or your insight of today's session.
Yeah, GM everyone. So I joined late, and to be honest, I've been struggling trying to understand and to listen in, basically. But I've gone through the process before. I've read through the whole prioritization. I've not read these particular recommendations though, I don't know. But I'll go back to check the portal and see what I can maybe read and maybe even score them on my own time too. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Ryan there for explaining your paper there. It's I haven't verified the math, but I'm sure you're much better at that than me.
I have to admit it was very much vibe research. But it was Python. So if Python made mistakes with the math, it was not an AI doing math. It was an AI writing Python.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to say so you're not so what I think is very cool with the Beyond minimum governance is that because we have been running so many workshops, and people are actually paying attention, and we see different tools popping up, we see suggestions coming out there, and that is let's say so healthy for, let's say, moving on in the governance process on Cardano. We are very, very young, and seeing proposals like you have made, Ryan, there is it warms our governance heart. So
Thank you.
I know we came out from Argentina with a lot of constitutional debt, and I'm so glad that Beyond got funded. And what we actually have, like, we have started to roll the snowball, if you understand. But the snowball will start rolling. So yeah. So thank you, Ryan, for explaining.
All right. At the beginning of the call, you mentioned IoG research. Is this the one you talked about, the incentivizing geographic diversity for decentralized systems?
It's reward schemes and committee sizes in proof of stake governance. I'm trying to find the actual IOG link, but it's gone. So I guess I'll give you the archive link.
I have it here. Hold on.
Okay. That's the one. Thank you.
I will add it into the comments. So whenever, hopefully in future, we add the AI in the application, that is points at comments. Okay, well, thank you for participating, and I will close the call for now.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for stepping up.
See ya.